sisters, stop marrying out. Black sisters, don't go for these racist white men. Oh, you black sisters, you coons. The black man is playing a game. The black sausage is playing a game. The black King Kong dick is playing a game. Because the black King Kong dick won't build you an empire. He won't build you a civilization. He won't buy a mansion and make you live in it. He won't support you, but he'll fuck you. He won't marry you, but he'll turn you to his whore. And when you've had enough, and you says, I want to be treated like the queen that I am, and you go and find yourself a lovely white man, that same King Kong wants to interfere with your happiness by pretending it was your fault. You join these pro-black groups and you look how they see you as. There is no blessing in whatever black people do. The Nation of Islam, how it was started, Elijah Muhammad sexually abused young black girls, and black women are still members of the Nation of Islam. They sexually abused 13 young black girls and blamed them, kicked them out the Nation of Islam.
Welcome to my channel. This is Divested Diamonds. You have arrived. Hello ladies, please do me a favor and click the like button as you watch this video. Thank you kindly. So in this video, we're going to discuss the ever-increasing hatred towards divestors from black males, mammies, in-betweeners, and everyone else who thinks that they understand divestment, but don't. As the divestment lifestyle continues to grow, people are talking. And one might say that the jury is still out as it pertains to the acceptance of this lifestyle. My thing is, and most divestors will agree with me when I say this, we don't care how you feel. We don't care what you think of us. We don't give a shit what you have to say. Your opinions do not matter to us. However, if you're out here putting out misinformation about divestment or divestors, we absolutely have every right to defend ourselves. And that's a fact. Divestment is not a talking point. It's not a costume that you can take off and put back on as and when you feel like it. Divestment is a mindset, a lifestyle based on an individual's right and need to separate themselves from any situation that no longer serves them. But more importantly, it's the foundation, the structure, the backbone to living a better existence while eliminating toxicity by putting yourself first. I don't see anything wrong with someone wanting to live their best life, but apparently a lot of you people do, and that's a shame. The issue that most people have in the so-called community, and the reason as to why we are perceived as a hate group, is because we refuse to engage and put up with all that dirty mess that you have going on in the so-called community. We refuse to put up with all that mess perpetuated by people who look like us. Dysfunction is embedded in the very fibers and foundation of the so-called community. And as divestors, we have become targets for simply pointing out the wrongdoings and trauma inflicted on the vulnerable. We have become targets for speaking up about some of the heinous crimes, the issues that have broken the spirits of Black girls and women. We are targeted for highlighting real problems, and they know absolutely well that the reason we do this is to bring awareness to those issues in order to give these women and girls a way out of that lifestyle. The reason most of these males and females don't like the sound of everything that we have to say is because it shines a light on all the depravity of the so-called community. These people have a tainted way of looking at our advice to Black women and girls. They look at this advice as some sort of attack, as some sort of abandonment, an abandonment of the so-called community. See, anytime anyone brings transparency to a problem, there will always be pushback, because there are certain people who will go against whatever it is that you have to say, especially when it means getting Black women out of those situations that only Black men benefit from. Most Black men have become so accustomed to bullying and terrorizing these so-called communities and getting away with it. Most Black women have become accustomed to this lifestyle while seeing absolutely nothing wrong with the behavior of these males. The problem with the so-called community is that it's a cesspool of so many different issues that majority of people do not want to talk about. This is why the levels of trauma and poor mental health go hand in hand in the so-called community. And how I know this is by simply looking at stories coming out of Blackistan. The attitudes people have, the responses, and the lack of compassion for victims of sexual crimes and other types of depravity are insane. The need to pedestalize the very men who terrorize the so-called community, and the need to coddle these individuals as opposed to changing things for the better, is always promoted. Here's the thing. When things remain stale and stagnant, it's a perfect setting for bacteria and other organisms to thrive. And the Black community, unfortunately, is exactly that. A dirty pond. Matter of fact, it's so dirty and mysterious looking from the outside that what's worse is what lurks and goes on underneath, away from prying eyes. It's not pretty. It never has been. And for those of you who are constantly arguing how other communities are so much worse than the Black community, most of you don't know shit. And tell me something. Why is it always necessary to compare and contrast dysfunction with other communities? Why is that so important to you? One of the many things that I hear the most is, if you're so divested, why are you so concerned about the so-called community? You left, right? That's a great question, and I'll answer it. I care because I'm a woman first. And as a woman, I have seen and experienced things that you could never imagine. And when I see any woman, but especially those whose image I share, being treated as something less than trash, it disturbs me. It disturbs my spirit, and it bothers me to no end. My aim is to work with Black women and girls and help them get to a better place. Now, I understand that the odds are against me. Not all Black women will divest from their circumstances, but it won't stop me from trying. That community dysfunction is unfortunately fueled by the immorality of black males. Black males who take pleasure in abusing black girls and women. The lack of proper mental health care means that a lot of these children are being brought up in these unconscionable situations, which leads to generations of people who deem a lot of these atrocities as normal. Most people in the so-called community are desensitized to the pain and the hurt of black women and girls. They don't give a shit. They don't care. Because as far as they're concerned, we should be used to that. And that's not okay. It never has been okay. One thing I've also noticed is that when confronted by other black people, when it comes to these types of deplorable behaviors, there's always the pass the buck mentality and placing most, if not all of the blame on the victims. It's not okay. You see, people will always have a lot to say on how the so-called community needs to do better. The unfortunate thing is, there's never any action behind those words. And that is why this foolishness is passed down from one generation to the next. Y'all like to talk, but your words have no power. It's pure theatrics with you and nothing but poetic nonsense. A lot of you who are so opposed to black women divesting are living in dysfunction as we speak. And you treat that dysfunction as a way of life. That's not normal. The trouble is, once people get comfortable living with trash, surrounded by trash, eventually that trash becomes treasure and viewed as normal. It's not okay. It has never been okay. Black women do not divest because they want to be with white men. I mean, it's so laughable. The audacity of you people and the things you say about divestors is just astounding. Where do you get off talking down to us? So, a black woman can't leave the so-called community unless she's being dicked down by someone? It's hilarious. You guys are crazy. This notion that divestment is linked to white men alone because there are no men of other races, right? Is presumptuous to say the least. Just be honest. The reason white men are the default in your mindset is because everything in the so-called community revolves around black men, their penises, and sex. And you think that these men will do the exact same thing that you have been doing to black women for years. This is why you cannot comprehend the departure of any black woman as an act of self-love unless she's linked to white men and their manhood. Further reiterating that women in the so-called community only exist for the purpose of appeasing black men. And if black women aren't appeasing you, they must be trying to appease white men. My thing is, why do you care so much? Why does that bother you so much? The issue that I personally have with this mindset is that you're taking a lifestyle, if you will, a movement that was created to save the lives of black girls and women into some sort of sexual thing between black women and white men. This was not the purpose of divestment. It's so funny because most of you have been living in this dysfunction for so long that you cannot imagine a Black woman leaving the so-called community just to take care of herself, just to put herself first, to take care of her own needs. You can't comprehend that. Unfortunately for you, what this proves to me is that there's no depth to your reasoning at all. This is why Black males are not builders, because majority of you cannot think beyond your erections. And yes, Black women who are divested do date out. Do we need permission from the so-called community to do that? Abso-fucking-lutely not. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Most women are attracted to powerful men. They are attracted to builders, protectors, and providers. The only group of men who seem to get angry at this are those who are not well equipped or equipped at all to be in a healthy, stable relationship with a quality woman. If it makes you angry to see women who want something out of a relationship, then perhaps you should remain single. Because let me tell you something that a lot of these relationship experts of yours aren't telling you. Relationships, believe it or not, work both ways. There's so much misinformation out there regarding divestors and their dating or relationship habits. These relationships that we have are reciprocal. That's how relationships are supposed to be. Unfortunately, in Blackistan, a woman is supposed to contort herself, bend over backwards, cater to the Black male. But what do these males do for their mammies? Absolutely nothing. And you want Black women to continue settling for men who have nothing to offer? Are you crazy? It's actually quite hilarious that you think divestment is all about Black women dating white men. And again, all you've done is just equate a whole lifestyle, right, to just sex. It's pitiful. I also love how you pontificate on our situations in a manner which suggests that you know more about our relationships than we do. Whew. You guys need help. You need hobbies. And this is what happens to a group of people who have way too much time on their hands. It's pitiful. It's ridiculous. There's more to our relationships than just pleasure of the flesh. These are normal, functional relationships in every way possible. But you wouldn't know anything about that now, would you? I also find it very interesting how you keep spreading lies on how divestors are out there looking for white men, or how Black women just fetishize white men and use them for money. Huh? The only reason you keep nipping at their heels is because they conquered you. You're angry and upset that other men see in Black women what you have always taken for granted. You keep calling us fat. You keep calling us ugly. You keep disrespecting us every chance you get. And you keep telling Black women how they need to change so we can continue on that roller coaster of one Scooby snack a day, while at the same time telling Black women how nobody else wants them. And it makes you mad. It makes you angry because no amount of insults or gaslighting could ever permeate what the Divine Mother created. You are beneath us Because spiritually speaking, you are the devil's spawn. And that is why you will always be cursed with bad karma. Look around you and reflect. As long as you keep ignoring and denying who the Black woman is, no good will ever come to you.
Black women are probably the most independent women when it comes to navigating their way through life. And we all know why. Most Black girls are socialized to depend on themselves. The reason for this is because of the lack of proper family structure in early childhood. And of course, there are exceptions to this, right? Not everybody comes from this type of circumstance, but such is the case for the majority of people. The reason for this is very simple. Most Black men are absentee fathers. Being absent doesn't always equate to not being there physically. There are Black males who are sometimes in the home. Some Black fathers are in the home, but still manage to fuck it up. They are present physically, of course, okay? They are there in the physical form. However, emotionally, they're not supportive to their kids. The main reason that most mothers push education on their girls is to be self-reliant, because the man in the so-called community cannot be relied upon. Black girls are usually taught the art of responsibility right at the beginning of their childhood, because there is no confidence in the males around them. And here's what people need to understand. There has never been a time where the collective of Black women have been afforded the luxury to just sit back and relax while the men took care of them. Unlike other communities where men run the show, the so-called community has never had those privileges because Black women have always been the ones trying to hold everything together. The so-called community is a matriarchy and not a patriarchy. Most of these males are quite happy resting in their femininity and letting women take care of everything. My question is, why should this be considered okay? And why should Black women not want to leave?
Let me tell y'all something. In this video, when I'm speaking of American women in particular, I'm speaking of Black American women. The Black American woman is one of the best women that you can ever get in the world. The Black woman is so loyal that she sticks with her man through his shortcomings, his excuses for his failures, through his cheating, through his infidelity. She sticks with him. The Black woman is so loyal that all over the world, the term ride or die was created from her loyalty, and it was popularized through her loyalty. But the problem is that Black men don't put the Black woman in position to win. They don't put her in position to be domestic. So this is why she has to take on his traits. And it creates a confliction. So when you see the Black woman get in position to win, she outshines everybody. This is facts.
Why should Black women be beholden to this kind of lifestyle? So if these women decided to sit down and do nothing whatsoever, I can promise you this, whatever is left of the so-called community would be reduced to rubble, ashes, and dust. Black women's efforts have never been valued or taken seriously because the so-called community is anti-progressive. Most Black males expect Black women to mule. These are the same males who are consumers of other men's inventions and know absolutely nothing about leadership. They enjoy being led by other men. Why would any woman with half a brain want to stay in this slavery type regressive environment where men take her for granted and show her no respect, no gratitude? It's counterproductive. Another thing that grinds my gears is the assumption that Black women leave the so-called community simply to divest from Black men. You see, this is what happens when groups of men think way too highly of themselves. This is actually quite funny. You think that everything is about you, and that's the problem. So, Black women can't leave simply because they want something better? Black women can't leave in search of a better lifestyle? Black women cannot leave because they deserve better? Why do the reasons for leaving have to revolve around Black males? Actually, don't answer that. I know why. It's very arrogant to assume, first of all, that we have to be attracted to you based on proximity and skin tone. And secondly, because you pedestalize yourselves as the most desired. There are a lot of us who feel differently about you. Some of us are only attracted to men of other races. Ever thought of that? No, of course not. Why would you? I mean, you're the greatest, aren't you? You're God's gift to women. Why would any of that ever cross your mind? I blame mammies for your arrogance because they're the ones who keep uplifting you and accommodating your inadequacies and making you believe that you're something more than you are. Any woman calling a man with no kingdom a king is just as delusional as he is. These women keep putting batteries in your backs and praising you because deep down they know that the truth about you is a hard pill to swallow. But still, they try. I think what it is that sometimes it's better for these women to live in their own heads as opposed to reality. The trauma bonding is strong, and the delusions are even stronger. And that is why males like this show up on my channel to talk shit. I had nothing but laughter when I read this. Damn near fell off my couch. Look, this is what Tyrone had to say on my last video. You're leading these women and girls down a dangerous path. Black women need Black men. Running into the arms of white is going to get Black women harmed. They really don't want Black women like that other than sex. Seek therapy to help you heal from all the hate. Black men love Black women. Really? Woo! My goodness. See, I would assume that he watched the video, but as usual, he glossed over every piece of important information inserted in that video. Not surprised at all. It's very typical of these Black men to behave this way because this is also part of the reason the so-called community sucks. Okay? It's part of the reason that the so-called community is a breeding ground for nonsensical bullshit. These males who, for the most part, cannot read or write, usually do not know how to listen as well. But since Nathan over here chooses to be willfully obtuse, I'll gladly repeat myself. Do you see these women and girls? Each and every one of them is gone. I'm not talking about vacation, dummy. Gone as in deleted. Anyone can look this information up. I compiled this list for the purpose of showing you just how important divesting is from the so-called community. This collage of women is from the gun memorial. Do you know what these women, who possibly didn't know anything about each other, have in common? They were deleted by Black men and boys. Now, I'm pretty sure that if I were to go back to that website right now, there would be fresh faces. This is what's happening to Black girls and women who are in relationships with or close proximity to Black males. So when people like him talk crap, and when Shea Butter denies the truth and does these debunking bullshit videos calling Black women liars for telling the truth, it bothers me to no end. You saying that Black women need Black men knowing how these males behave is asinine. Shay Sade saying this.
And the main pushback I've gotten from some of these divestors, surprise, surprise, was just like, oh, well, the men do it too. And I'm like, no, they don't. I haven't seen that. And also, even if that is the case, who cares? Like, two wrongs don't make a right. Like, you know what I mean?
Is asinine. And again, this is just a tiny list from the gun memorial. I did not even scratch the surface in that video. All I did was breathe in that direction. And this is what I found. The problem with these Dusties and Mammies is that they don't value the lives of Black women and girls. Because in the so-called community, life is cheap. And that is why they don't snitch when someone is deleted, even though they know who the killer is. Is that normal? You want Black women to stay in places like that? For what purpose? To feed your lust for blood? And you see, his stupidity didn't end there. He says, in response to somebody in the comment section, that divestors are no better. You want to hurt Black men. I love Black women and don't know any Black man who wants to hurt y'all. You can't divest from us. Again, very delusional, very arrogant, and very self-absorbed. All I'm hearing is me, 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 me. Very dismissive to the truth. And like I said, life is cheap. So, dear Black community, Mammies and Dusties, Black women don't need your permission to divest. We can do whatever the hell we want. And if you have an issue with that, that is your problem. You can shame Black women all you want. It's not going to work. Listen, you're still going to have your share of Mammies. They are willing to stay and cater to you for Scooby snacks. What's the problem? They will always be there. The one thing that you can't control is the movement of Black women and the desire to want to do better without you. Black women have been muling for centuries. How long did you think that was going to carry on? And your desperate need to speak on behalf of white men and men of other races, and how you claim that they don't want us, is just pathetic. It's desperate. Most of you don't even mingle with people of other races. So how the fuck would you even know? You project every time you talk about these issues because deep down, you're worried Black women leaving you behind affects your bottom line. Now, you can sit there and dream about going to Brazil and all these other countries to get your quote-unquote exoticals, but most of you, please be honest, most of you have never even left the cities that you grew up in. So what are you talking about? Majority of you have no passports. The truth of the matter is, you don't have any disposable income to go anywhere on vacation. I mean, yeah, there's a small number of you who can afford these women. And for the right price, you can have the prettiest women on your arms. But that's as far as it goes. Stop lying to yourselves. You want divestors because they're the only women who don't want you. And don't think it goes unnoticed on how you treat your so-called preferences, right? The same way that you've been treating Black women for centuries is the same way that you treat them. You are who you are. and your chances for change are 0 to none. Notice how you're the common denominator in all things negative? You frequent our channels to talk shit because we are a challenge and mammies aren't. It's so weird how you love to do video after video speaking negatively about divestors. I mean, at this point, we're giving you so much content that actually talking about us is paying your rent and all your bills. And all I can say to that is you're welcome. You're able to put food on the table because of divestors. Again, you're welcome. Just admit it. We live in your heads rent-free. You can't help yourselves. You're obsessed with us, and quite frankly, it's wonderful being fabulous. You should try it sometime. Oh, and by the way, this notion that white men only want us for sex or that they fetishize us is ridiculous. That's kind of like the pot calling the kettle black. Black men are the biggest fetishists ever. Every time you look at women, it's never in a decent manner. All you see are walking body parts. Ass, titties, vag. Ass, titties, vag. And ass being the main thing that you like. For most of you, the bigger, the better. You have fetishized black women since the beginning of time. And since you don't build anything, all you ever do is think about sex. Women are nothing but walking vaginas to you. You have no respect, and you're a disgrace. And who in their right mind wants to be a part of that? And you mammies are just as bad as your kings. Your objections towards black women divesting are simply illogical. The real issue here is that you can't stand to see other black women happy. That's what it really is. You seek companionship in misery. If we were all congregated and crying about black males, that would make you happy. Unfortunately, you would find comfort in something like that. For you, it's always nice to know that you're not the only one whose life sucks. This is why it cracks me up when one of your men shows up to my channel to talk shit. I mean, it's nothing shocking, of course, especially coming from a loser, dragging his nutsack all over my channel. And here we go. This is what your representative had to say. The term mammy comes from white children caretaker, not our good sisters who love their people. Clearly, Tyrone is new to this space. He must have gotten lost and found himself on Divestment Avenue. He thought that he'd stop by to educate us because he's under the impression that we don't know what the term mammy means. FYI, we know all you have to do is replace those children with black males, and the definition remains the same. Black males do behave like children, and your counterparts behave like your caregivers. So it's the same thing to us. They are mammies because they will put their lives on the line to make sure that you're okay. And they love it. They enjoy doing that. I don't understand the problem here. But yeah, there's nothing you can do to stop black women from divesting. FYI, we've gone global. Yes! A few friends of mine have actually called me from different parts of the world talking about divestment. We are reaching black women globally. The message is spreading like wildfire. It's all over social media. Divestment is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And I know that realistically, not all black women will divest, but that doesn't matter. No one's forcing it down anybody's throat. Divestment is a choice. Some people choose to live in misery. Can't be helped. Those who want to live healthy, fruitful lives away from manufactured stress will improve their lives. And let me point this out, because some of you are under the impression that Black women only divest in order to spend white man's money. That shea butter said something along the lines of, all they're looking for is just an opportunity to leave their horrible situations in Blackistan. First of all, not all divestors are from Blackistan. While that may be the majority, and by no means is that a bad thing, right? There are those who come from different backgrounds and circumstances as well. Divestors are an eclectic group of women who support the advancement and safety of other Black women and girls. Let me explain something to you. I'll tell you what I divested from. I divested from poverty-minded family members who only remembered that I was alive when in need of financial support. These are people who would never pick up the phone to call me or even text or email me just to check on me and find out if I was okay. As long as I was giving them money and sending them whatever they were asking for, we were cool. If I told them that I couldn't help for whatever reason, they caught an attitude with me. Well, eventually, I started cutting people off. One by one, they disappeared, because there's nothing worse than the feeling of only being relevant to people when you can provide them with what they need. They expected me to continuously help them, but they didn't want to help themselves. So if I had continued on that path, giving and taking on other people's issues while neglecting myself, where would I be today? It's like a self-imposed prison. The sense of entitlement was so toxic that I had to check myself. I realized that they were not the only problem. I was a problem too, for facilitating that kind of environment and enabling the kind of behavior that would continuously allow other people to take advantage of me. And don't get me wrong, it's nice to help those in need, but you must never do it to your own detriment. That is part of my story and what I divested from. Greedy family members with a poverty mindset. You see, the purpose of divestment is to better yourself, get your mind right, and get your life in order. Getting therapy for past trauma is a must. And of course, therapy doesn't always erase everything, but it helps achieving life goals and living your dream, whatever that may be. Most divestors just want to live in peace, away from the toxic so-called community and away from anything and anyone that hinders your growth. Divestment is about finding yourself, knowing yourself, finding your worth, and appreciating the skin you're in. Divestment is about living your best life, away from toxicity. Why must that be a problem for anyone? We're not obsessed with you. You're obsessed with us because you can't believe our audacity. The audacity of choosing oneself while separating oneself from your community. How dare we do something like that? Who do we think we are, right? There's nothing wrong with having standards. Unfortunately, the standards as far as quality of life for mammies and their kings is too low. The bar is set way too low. The truth of the matter is, divestors do not need the so-called community. Nothing good could ever come out of the promotion of toxicity. And unfortunately, that's what your community is all about. And this is to the guy who said, all we ever do is talk about Black men. Let me say this to you. It's impossible for us to address real issues within the so-called community without addressing the real problem. And the problem, the reason as to why that cesspool exists is because of black men. You are the reason there is no protection. You are the reason for the excessive amounts of trauma imposed on young black girls and women. You are the reason there is no community in the first place. You are the reason high crime exists. You are the reason single mothers exist. Divestors are not obsessed with talking about you. You need to understand that the only reason that real divestors ever mention you at all is because you are the cause of a lot of these issues. Now, I've heard a lot of you say that we only do it because we still want to be with black men. But that is simply not true. When you are used as talking points in our videos, it's not because we want to be with you, dummies. Stop flattering yourselves. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. You flexing and acting as though we are romantically interested in you is part of the reason that a lot of these issues never get resolved. You lack the ability to listen and communicate effectively, and you wonder why you're always at the bottom? Get over yourselves. This dismissive mindset of yours against black women and their need to address trauma caused by you is part of the reason why they need to stay away from you. Do you think that you can just put a band-aid on deep hurt and have it go away? Get the fuck out of here. Black divested women do not need the so-called community. And yes, we will continue to talk about black men because in order to address these issues, the trauma, past or present, the root cause has to be addressed. Like I said, black men are the cause of a lot of these issues. In some cases, that responsibility can be shared with mammies too, because they are just as toxic as their men. On that note, please leave your thoughts and comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And remember, ladies, divest, divest, divest. Thank you so much for watching. This is Divested Diamonds, and I'll see you next time. Bye, diamonds.